All right, on a request. So before we begin the fifth annual ESG assessments of Thai financial institutions on how to create a fair and sustainable futures. But because there is a protocol for using this building from the Bank of Thailand, so that would be a video to show how should you escape in any cases that accidents may take place. So please pay attention to the clip, please. So in case of emergencies, fire alarms will ring on the flashing strobe light. When you hear the alarms, remain calm and look for an emergency exit sign. We have folders as follow. Please leave the building by the nearest exit and avoid paths with smokes. If there is a smoke, please bend down and cover yourself with a mask or a cloak to avoid inhaling the fumes until you reach the exit. Be careful when walking downstairs and should use the railings if applicable. If you cannot open the door, simply look for emergency door release beside it. Press the glass to crack it and pull the door then open easily. Do not use the elevators. Once left the meeting room, please gather at the assembly point near the waterfront. Our staff will check the number of people and assist those remaining inside the building as soon as possible. Please take these steps with caution when the emergency occurs for safety of everyone. Lastly, we would like to inform you that the BOT Room Learning Center is certified with safety standards. We also have standards equipment for the prevention of emergencies. Thank you for your attention. All right. So, as for a consumer, someone who worked for consumer protection, I have to thank BOT because such clip that we see in the theater, the foundation, who is a partner for Fair Finance Thailand, the foundation for consumers, has to fight a great deal to get such clip. So we see this clip from BOT, right? But we have not seen as many clips as this from other public company or private companies. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ESG Thai Financial Institution, how to create a fair and sustainable futures. I would like to welcome everyone to this public forum from Fair Finance Thailand that we are going to launch the ESG score for the financial institutions. We are at the Learning Center of Bank of Thailand today. So today we have a summary of 2022 policy assessment, followed by annual award ceremonies, then followed by public discussions on those who are related from the BOT, from commercial banks, from specialized banks, and then we also have another public discussion panel from our partner in Fair Finance Thailand, consisting of Salt Forest International Rivers, Foundations for Consumers, and Law Thai Foundation and Earth. We are live through our Fair Finance pages. So if you are here and you would like to publish the clip or the videos, you can share through our Facebook pages. We have two links. First, so one link is for Thai, and then another link for English that is being translated simultaneously in the real time. So you can go to Fair Finance Thailand page, Facebook page. So at first, I like to invite Kun Sarani Achawanantakun, who is a leader of Fair Finance Thailand research team, and Kun Siwat Huang Pradit, a senior researcher from Fair Finance Thailand, to give a summary of the 2022 policy assessment of Thai financial institutions. Hello, distinguished guests, and thank you, the Learning Center of BOT, who has given us a location or venue today. So this is our fifth time, and it is a summary of the project for Fair Finance Thailand, and it's the first phase of our project or the first 5 years. So we're gonna mention highlights the last 5 years that we've been working on. So this could be different from our summary from the last times. So if anyone who are interested in our presentation, you can download from Fair Finance Thailand page later. And for the report, you can download from the website fairfinancethailand.org as well. The file would come in PDF format, and it would be in more detailed than what we will present today. So, for those who are not familiar with who we are, the Fair Finance Thailand, so we're going to give you a brief introductions. So, we are a network of what we call Fair Finance Guy International that comes from Netherlands. So, Fair Finance Guy International was established in coming up with indicators, sustainability indexes for banks. And today we call it ESG, environmental, social, and governance, because we want to use these assessments to public as a tools for consumers and other civil societies to drive together the banks into sustainable banks that aligns with sustainable development. So this Fair Finance Guy International, we would have might have different focuses, but the main focus remains the same, which means that we're trying to use these indicators for banks to give score and to rank the score of the bank to as to which banks has make it more transparent or have more sustainability indicators in their own banks. We also provide training, we provide exchanges. Sometimes we provide trainings for civil societies as well to stay alert on ESG regarding banks. So these are the main works from Fair Finance. And this Fair Finance Guide International, our network consists of 15 countries. Even in Asia itself, there are many countries. We have Fair Finance Japan, we have Fair Finance Indonesia, Fair Finance Philippines, and Thailand was established last year. And then after we had Fair Finance Thailand, we have Fair Finance Vietnam, we will have Fair Finance Cambodia, and then we are having Fair Finance Laos who are not in the slide yet. So not long after, we would have all four Fair Finance who are the member of Mekong River countries. So You might feel that there might have to be conditions or criteria in joining fair finance around the globe, but actually, fair finance is quite open, and in many countries, if you already have a research institutions or a civil society that you are interested in using these indicators to apply with the banks or financial institutions, you can request for support, for technical supports to know how to do the assessments. And then you can establish fair finance of that country. For example, like Philippines, they would emphasize on consumers because the established company is a company that work on consumer. In some countries like in Europe, they work on climate change. They focus on climate change because the established civil society work on climate especially. So the focus is different. As for Thailand, we're trying to have different components that reflect many aspects of benefits in Thailand. That's why we have five partners. We have Foundation for Consumers who have been working for consumers for a long time. We have Inlaw Thai Foundation who work on the environment. We have Earth or Ecological Alert and Recovery Thailand, who works on waste and garbage from industries, and International Rivers, who work on waters, and International Civil Society, who works on water conservation around the world. So this is quite a good mix, and together with South Ferris, who is a research company that are interested in the sustainable development. So that's the brief introduction that we do not work alone. Some of you might only see us in Thailand, but we actually have network around the globe and also network in Asia that we can exchange information from many, many countries. The main work we work on Thailand, we focuses on five issues, and what allow us to be here is the ESG assessments of the banks by using the indicators of the Fair Finance Guide International. And then we also try to do case studies. Why do we need case studies? Because as you all know, that banks, even though they have policies that they're trying to work on ESG, still there are questions that arose that how can this paper policy on paper could be applied to real life, and how is it applied, how good is it, how bad it is, because there might be a gap between policy on paper and the practicality. That's why we bring up case studies that they work with their customers or they work with others to actually reflect the gap between policies and the practicality. So with the main objective to drive the banking sector to have the policies or the practice guidelines that align with sustainability practice. So besides this, we also try to discuss with stakeholders, and these stakeholders include from regulator like Bank of Thailand or SEC Securities and Exchange Commissions, as well as other organizations like human rights, international committees, and also other civil societies and other financial institutions that we call stakeholders, because the banking activities reflect and um, impact others activities of the society. Also, we also provide training or capacity building to civil society and financial institutions. During COVID, we do online training and we invite the experts, for example, on like climate change taxonomies or like human rights, to provide knowledge to the organization who are interested in. And lastly, we try to communicate continuously through our Fair Finance Facebook page. So for those who are interested, if we have two channels. in which you can access. So the first one is our website, fairfinancethailand.org. First, you will see the latest ranking, which is the result of the latest assessment from all the banks. So this is the latest result. And you can compare this on issue base. You can compare it between banks. And if you click the website, you will see the details of each issue and what does it means for each bank. And for case studies, so recently as we've been recovering from COVID-19, so we have a lot of issues about debt. So the Fair Finance Thailand decided to do a case studies on the debt issue during COVID. And then we pro- summarize and suggest to the BOT about the result that we found. For example, like the debt structure that we found during COVID. So in the first 5 years, we begin with commercial banks first. And so the banks that we assess, two of them has become one, which is TTB, before we assess them separately. And then after the third year, we assess the specialized institutions, the SFI, the specialized financial institution. That's why we include like SME Bank, the GSB, or like the BBAC. So this is our process to assess the bank because we're trying to push the financial sector into more sustainable practice. So for Fair Finance, each year we are happy to get reflections and comments from banks and from civil societies. So for each year assessments, we begin by doing the review of their information, and we look at only public information that either is on sustainability report or from the report sent to the SEC or on the website. To we gather those information together and we give them a score, and then we discuss with each bank. We will send the detail of these assessments to the bank, to each bank, and we call this as the period of public hearing. It's because sometimes the banks reflect back that, oh, our bank should get a score on this, but the research team did not find the information that they're supposed to be looking for. So I think this is quite interesting, the exchange between we have with the bank. And sometimes the bank would say, okay, so we should get a score on this certain issue, and I think we can work on it so that we can get the score later. So it has been a very interesting exchange between the bank and us. And these are the topics that we assess. So it's quite um, inclusive. We would have from climate change, corruption, human rights, labor rights, gender equality, consumers' rights, and the financial inclusion, in which we hope that the banks would play a bigger role in pushing their financial inclusions. So these are GSE. On governance, we have transparencies and accountability. We look at the remuneration policies and the transparency on tax. So you will see that this is quite inclusive on both E, S, and G. And the information we use, as we said, is all in the public document. For example, we use that one report we would use all the documents that comes directly from the financial institutions. And for the specialized financial institutions, we have different criterias because they don't work the same way with the commercial banks. So we have a set of different indicators for them. So in the past 5 years, you would see that it's good news that if you look at the direction or the trend, you see that mostly they on the rise, and whether commercial banks or specialized financial institutions, they're quite positive and they're on the rise. And the criteria that we use, the indicators that we use are not static. And Fair Finance Guy International have been updating these indicators to make it more applicable with the current situation. For example, the issue of climate change, that we have these more pressing issues and more urgent issues. For example, when the report from the ICCC launched, we adjust our indicators as well, or like to make the our indicators more stringent. So even though we change the criteria every 2 years, some of the banks are really working really well on that. And for the success, not the success of just fair finance, but the success of all of us who are here in this room, for both fair finance and the other financial institutions, we see the competition culture that take place. At first, banks would be confused, like, why would you assess the bank when we never apply? But eventually, there is this competitive culture or the participatory culture that happens, especially like they want to know what like the competitors present, because and working normally they would compare between their work with other banks. So we see this very good competitive culture, and we have to give credit to banks, especially for like TTB. TTB was ranked the lowest the first year, but then they keep like trying to improve. They trying to be more transparent, and they open up their sustainability policies, and they has been the first in the rank for many years. And they are the first bank to open the credit policies, and it aligns with the FFGI criteria. So besides this, so we call this competitive culture because five largest banks of Thailand are really competing. So at during the hearing, the banks would ask, okay, so in these issues, what is our rank in these issues? And they would see that like, oh, that competitor banks would they like behind us or they above us, and they would try to improve on their work to get the ranking higher. So I think this is a very good culture that has been taking place in the past 5 years. And on like then they would ask how many policies we have, and after we present the assessment, the criteria to the banks. And then we have found that like after joining Fair Finance, the banks has make the Fair Finance Thailand have made the banks adjust and open their policies to public for at least 25 policies. And also the Fair Finance provide training about sustainability, which will receive a very welcoming response from the banking and financial institutions with more than 200 participants. So the highlights for the last year, you would see that Thai banks, the issues that we get a really good score is financial inclusion and then consumers protection. But here on consumer protection, so if you read the criteria, you will say that the criteria doesn't cover or like digital banking or digital service. So this is this could be reflect back that the indicator itself has to be changed. And Fair Finance Thailand and Fair Finance Guides International is reviewing these issues to include the digital banking or digital service to be able to reflect online platform with consumers as well. And how is it different from like offline space? As like in Thailand, Thai people are very familiar with online banking. And then another some categories start with really little. For example, like human rights. The first year we have like rally any banks has it. But today the situation has changed. If you look at human rights right now, the large bank or the five largest bank, they follow um, the UN policies on business. So the table show different categories and we compare between the commercial banks and then the government specialized financial institutions. And you said that they work on different issues or categories of sustainabilities as well. You would see that this reflect the competition. If you look at the last column, you would see that most banks they have a lot of score. They improve a lot of score even despite the ranking number doesn't change as much. And you see that like many banks increase more than 10%, and with more score means that they make their policies more public. For the specialized financial institution, the ranking remains the same as well, but you can see that all bank has increased their score more than 10% as well. So this is a very good progress for sustainable policies from banks. Even though we still have many issues to work on and the urgent pressing issues that we need to work on ESG, and we would have to hear it from the banks themselves or like the partner of Fair Finance Thailand themselves on what issues that we could be further improved despite having such good scores already. So next is Kunsiwat and he's gonna mention about the highlights from the score this year. So I'm going to go into detail a little bit quickly. So if you're interested in more in-depth detail, you can go to the website. So I'm going to compare between 2021 and 2022. You would see that the policies are more public. If you look at the green sections, that's mean that they open their policies to public better. But if you see on remunerations and the transparency and accountability, they have less scores because of the criteria adjustment that Fair Finance had done. So it means that there are certain issues that the bank used to get the score from last year, they would not get it this year. So that means some of the banks get their score reduced on these categories. But overall, you would see that the bank tried to be more transparent about their policies. And for the outstanding policies from commercial banks on this fifth year of assessment, you will see that many commercial banks work on their credit policies and they work on exclusion lists. And especially the exclusion list work on the climate change. And for the banks that the government are the biggest shareholders, they also have progress. For example, like Gung Thai Bank or KTB is the only bank with policy that they said that the customer of KTB does not only have to follow the labor law standard, but they have to have a clear monitors and improvement on labor law. And the GSB, for example, or governance saving banks, they get a score on the zero total tolerance policies or gender equality. And this is the first year that GSB make their gender pay gap information public. So these are the outstanding policies for the top 5 commercial banks. So for climate change, you will see that this year SCB make their policies public a lot more. And SCB is the bank that adopt Equator Principle, and they work on climate change. For example, they come up with exclusion list of the mine. And for KTB is the only bank that said that their customers must not be involved in lobby activities, both direct and indirectly, that would affect climate change. As for corruption, these categories, every bank's already gains a lot of score, but this year we picked 2 policies from the top 5 banks. For SCBs and K Bank, they said that customers has to declare that they would not present or bribe or to gain unfair advantage, both direct and indirectly. And the customer has to adopt the anti-corruptions policies in their procurement systems. Well-being is quite hard because it's different throughout the banks. There are 3 banks that gained score these years. So in this well-being, mainly it's about the adoption of ILO declarations of the working conditions of the workers. For example, TTB has another outstanding policies. They said about the credits on the tobaccos. They're trying to reduce the credit for the tobaccos companies to to reach zeros in 9 years from now. The next category is human rights, and many banks has policies that they have to comply with UNGP, business and human rights. And but some banks go further than that, and they have asked their customers to adopt the United Nations guiding principles on business and human rights as well. And some banks, for example like TTB, they would talk about the rights of the natives or the local as well. As for labor rights, nature and weapons, most policy remain the same. Some policies are made more public. For example, like nature, it's a category that many banks has announced their exclusion list from last year. So in the past year compared to last year, they didn't announce more exclusion list. And on weapons, there are some banks like KTB and K Bank that declare exclusion lists for the autonomous weapon systems or laws. And KTB also has a specific policies for dual use. And if this dual use has been used for military purpose, they would say this is the weapons for military. And then we have another 2 categories that offers consumer protection and financial inclusion that most banks already get high scores. So policies that have been open to public more, as Kunsalani said, that we have discussed with the bank more, and we do the hearing between 20 September to 30 November of 2022. And we've seen that many banks have open more make their policies more public, and you see the increase in number is Kung Thai or KTB. SCB is like 6 policies, Bangkok 4 policies, TTB 3, and GSB 2 policies. As for KTB, what they make the policy public would be they would make the exclusion list on climate change more clear. And KTB also has a policies to give responsible credit. They emphasize on the importance of that the customers must care for the well-being of the workers, and they must pay attention to labor rights and disabilities. And for SABs, they have more 6 policies, and mainly it's about the financial support for the fossils companies and the exclusion list. For example, like coal-based electricity's production. And Bangkok Bank, there are more policies that make public. That include like the consideration for risks and the impact on environment and societies, and they make public about the tax considerations. They make public about debt collections and individual debt collections, and they make public about the SME policies. And TTB, there are 3 policies that they make public. The first one is the policies for individual debt collections, the no fee policies for a general bank account, and then the complaint channel for stakeholders. At GSB, as we mentioned, they have zero tolerance policy for gender equality, and then the public of gender pay gap. And then for each categories, you can read in the document. So I'm gonna go through this very quickly. So for climate change, for SCB, you see that SCB is quite outstanding in these categories because they adopt the equator principles, and they make their policies more public that align with the criteria. And then on corruptions, most banks get quite similar scores. And gender equality, so most banks adopt zero tolerance policies in gender equalities, especially in hiring process. And then they also have zero tolerance towards sexual harassment in all forms. And then many banks make their pay gap informations public. But we actually expect more from the pay gap information. We want to know whether the banks have the monitor system, how can they improve on this gap, and their Thai bank especially does not work on this issue as much. And then for well-being, there are only 3 banks that gain score. Mostly it would be credit policies that they ask their customers to work on the well-being of their employers. And then we see TTB that mentions about the tobacco industry. Human rights. And we said many banks, they follow the UNGP, but TTB, they get a lot of score compared to other banks because TTB talk about the native rights, and they discuss with local communities, and they get voluntary acceptance from the community as well. So they get a high score on these matters. Labor rights. So mostly they get scores from adopting ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principle and Rights at Work and nature. Many banks get score, but TTB especially they get a lot of score on this from last year because from that exclusion list. Other banks you can see that they have been progressing very well as well. As for weapons, most banks get score already because they follow the law. And then tax. So many banks get score on this, and mostly they would announce that they would not use track structure to avoid paying tax. Then there is the detail of the scope of the assessments that could be different for each bank. And consumer protection. Most banks get scores on almost all areas, and banks would get the score in quite similar issues because consumer is a core business of the banks. As Kun Solani has said, the digital banking has not been included in here yet, and we are working on this in the future. And then financial inclusion, this is another category that they have the highest score, and they get quite similar score. As for example, SCB is the only bank with policies that make the rights of customer public, and they would mention the risk of the products or the service in written language. And also for those who does know how to write. And for remunerations, overall, the score is quite low, but in the practice guideline, they might not change so much from the last year. They would say about the KPI on remunerations and transparencies and accountability. This is the last category. So the bank has a score on this, and then they would get a score from explaining the money that support or the investments of their organizations. But they would have the sustainability report according to the GRI standards, and they would also have complaint channel for individual and communities to complain if they get a negative impact from the financial institutions. So these um, only TTB that wrote that in written language. That's why they get full score on this. So for further informations, you can read on the website or in Facebook. So I'm going handling the stage back to Kun Kanika. So I'm going to explain the word a little bit. Gender pay gaps mean the gap between male and female. And exclusion list is the forbidden credit list that financial institutions use on as to what business they should not give the credit to. So that's a little more description for those who are unfamiliar.
So next up, it will be the time for the award ceremony. It's not a huge event, but I would like to say that all the awards given, it is a celebrative event and it is something that really worth celebrating because you can see from the report that all the banks they have gotten a lot of improvement on the scores. So here is the awards for 2022 from Fair Finance Thailand, and we would like to give the award to TTB Bank. Please give them a big round of applause. So I would like to congratulate Kamonpan Laksana, Head of Sustainability, TMB Thanachart Bank. And next up, okay, Kamonpan, please kindly remain on stage. Next up, we would like to give the 2018 to 2022 5-year Most Improved Award. And also, we will give to TTB Bank. And next up, it would be the 2022 Most Improved Commercial Bank Award. We would like to give to Siam Commercial Bank. I would like to invite Dashada from Strategic Marketing and Communication Department from SCB. Next up would be 2022 Most Improved Commercial Bank Award and Most Improved SFI Award. We would like to reward that to SME Bank. So here is Mr. Mokun Posayapisit, Senior Executive Vice President from SME Bank. May I now invite all the awardees and the speakers, the panelists, including Sal Forrest, including Law International Rivers Foundation for Consumers, and Earth. Please all come up on stage for a group photo. Can you hold your trophies? Some of you have gotten 2 trophies. Please on the stage. And all of you who are watching us online right now, I like to say that all the reports and evaluation details, we have it all online, so it's available. Please feel free to visit Fair Finance fan page or just go to fairfinance.org. We support our financial institutions to join us. We also welcome all SFI, commercial banks, and financial institutions to publicize our report for your use. Because, like I said, besides these official evaluation, we welcome feedbacks from our financial institutions so that we can work better. And together, we will be able to enhance the standards of this evaluation to ensure that all policies and practices by the banks would be for the benefits of economy and environment. Thank you very much once again. So thank you panelists from the first discussion. Now give me a minute to arrange the stage. Those of you who are here, you can go for a tea break. We have refreshments for you. And while we are arranging the shares, I'd like to introduce you to the Fair Finance fan page. We have a lot of infographic up on there. We share about sustainability culture, and we also talk about the bankruptcy convention and acts. We also talk about Luang Prabang Dam. So if you'd like to learn more about sustainable banking, we have all the updated information for you. And for the next session, it will be the panel discussion, which we will talk about future of Thai banks, ESG. I would like to hereby invite Ms. Siripim Vimolchalao, Director of Financial Institution Strategy Development Department from Bank of Thailand. I would like to also invite Mr. Mokun Posaya Pisit, Senior Executive Vice President, SME Bank, Mr. Kamunpan Laksana, Head of Sustainability, TMB Thanachart Bank. And also is a pity that for this year, we don't have representative of Siam Commercial Bank, even though they have gotten the award. All right, so may I please invite all the respective panelists up on the stage. All right, you can hear me clearly, right? The first topic we'll touch upon is the future of Thai Bank's ESG. I think it's best if I just tell you what ESG is. Well, ESG is environmental, social, and governance. I have to say that right now, ESG is the topic that banks, entrepreneurs, or business owners, we all focus on this. So I'd like to start from the Bank of Thailand. So for Bank of Thailand, you really do prioritize ESG, right? We have discussed on this for many times, and I can see that you always talk about this. So would you like to share a bit more on this? You can hear me, right? First of all, thank you. Hello, everyone. I have to thank Fair Finance a lot for inviting me to be a part of this event. So you have heard from the report already, and we can see that the ESG score of Thai banks have improved. So I would like to congratulate Fair Finance for the 5 years performance because you have created a lot of positive impacts on financial institutions. And now, as for the roles of civil society, I have to say that we all need to work together to create change and to create fair finance. And of course, when we talk about financial institutions, banks play a big role. And you can see that when we evaluate the score, we evaluate the score on both E, S, and G. So it is great that we have these criteria. We know the areas that we need to work on, we need to improve. And as for BOT, I would like to share with you our viewpoint on ESG. So first of all, yes, we do prioritize ESG a lot. We support our country to grow sustainably. And all the loans, all the funds, the bankings, of course, they need to be sustainable. And so we need to work on all the elements on E, S, and G. For example, for G, governance, we really do work on this continuously. All the financial institutions and banks, we have accountabilities to all the people who deposit money with them, all the shareholders. So of course, the internal governance is important. And BOT have come up with many policies on governance. We continuously categorize different policies to keep it updated with the current situations. Now, for S, social, we also do care a lot on this. I can see that many banks are working very well on this as well, seen from the scores. And we take care of those people who use our financial services. And for the service providers, we also make sure that they provide fair services. And we have also published directional paper on the project we are working on. And the last one is on E, environment. On the environment, I would say is a bit new when compared to S&G. So during the past few years, you can see that Bank of Thailand is working more and more on these environmental issues. And if you see from the scores, the banks still get quite low score in environmental scores, like on climate change and all that. But that is just because it is a new topic that we are working on, so it will keep on improving. There's still a lot of rooms for improvement. And so I would like to use this opportunity to share a bit more on environmental aspects so that you can see the guidelines and the direction we are heading to. Now, the question that many people would like to ask is, what is the direction by BOT? Well, we would like to see financial institutions to prioritize environmental element into their practices and policies. I would like them to internalize this into their processes. And so that is why Bank of Thailand comes up with the guiding principles for financial institutions so that they will always internalize environmental aspects into their practice. And we published that last February. So we have to start this change top down, meaning we have to change from board of directors, from management level. They have to come up with strategies that is sustainable and environmental friendly. They have to also have clear environmental goals, and they have to come up with transition plan, meaning that once they have set the goals, they have to have the plan to turn that into actions, which this is in alignment with the Fair Finance guides. Also, we need to have the risk assessment processes, which would work on environmental risk, which could be different from other area assessment. Because for other risk assessment, we might do backward looking, but for environmental assessment, we have to do forward looking. We have to predict what would happen in the future if we keep on doing this. And so right now we are trying to promote and support the banks to work on this and to come up with the plan. And another essential process would be on the data declaration. So they have to declare the data, because when they do that, then people can take part in asking questions, to see if the policy or what they are working on is practical or not. I have to say that when we talk about data declaration, it's not just something that we trying to make Thai banks do, but this is a practice we're trying to push worldwide. So we would like to make this data declaration standardized. If all the financial institutions they do it in different practices, it's very hard for us to compare and check. So it would be great if they can do it in the same standard so that we can check them more efficiently. And this practice is going to take time. So we understand that. We would be more than happy to facilitate so that the banks can declare data more clearly and in a systemic way. This is what we are working on right now. It's not easy, but if we collaborate, then we will be able to succeed on this. And another thing I'd like to touch upon is we say that we support the environmental friendly activities. Now, some people say, what do you actually mean by that? So we work with relevant organizations on the taxonomy. So we categorize the activities that we call green activities, and we also work on activities that is in amber, which means transition activities. So we'll come up with different taxonomies and definitions to define what activities are green or amber. And also we are working with the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Natural Resources on this. And also we are working with many financial institutions. We are working with Bank of Thailand and SEC. So together we are trying to achieve the goal of these campaigns. And in summary, before I move on to another speaker, we would like to see the transformation of financial institutions because we understand that these financial institutions, especially banks, you play very important roles to support the entrepreneurs and businesses. So the financial products and services are the keys. So you see, as of right now, we are still brown. We are not green yet. We still have a lot of carbon emissions. So our goal is how can we reduce the level of brown right now? We are trying to become amber, yellow, and then green. And so this is the project we are working on. So I'd like to add on a bit. What you were saying, you say you support all the financial institutions and banks on ESG. And as of right now, Thailand still have very high carbon emissions. If for us to change or come up with financial products, what are you doing to help them on those creations? As of right now, we have the guiding principles to help them. We have motivations for them or incentives for them, which we have what we call transformation loan. We come up with this during COVID situation. So to help the banks to recover from COVID-19. As we know that now, we are in the new normal era. And when we say new normal, that includes ESG. So we would like all the businesses to be able to transform into this new era that we really prioritize on becoming more green. And I know that there are many other aspects that we need to support them on, though I have to admit that right now we are studying on that. For example, on data declaration of SME, we would like them to declare more data to us. And we are thinking, can we create certain platform for them to have open data? Thank you. I'd like to ask a bit more. So right now, BOT is prioritizing environment, right? Though right now, we know that the banks have to come up with exclusion list, which basically means the list of businesses that the bank will not support financially. Now, I'd like to ask how Bank of Thailand is supporting this exclusion list so that next year we can have higher score. When we talk about exclusion list, some of them I have to say is quite clear, right? So we don't have to touch on that. And what I would like to talk about would be on the concern of those exclusion lists. Thing is, this exclusion list, they are on exclusion list because they are brown businesses. And let's say if we see that you're a brown business right now, but in the future, if you change, you become green, maybe you'll be out of the exclusion list. Let's see if you have exact plans on what you are going to do. If you have credible plans, then we might get you off the list. But like I said, it has to be credible. It has to be serious plan. So if you can show that you have serious and concrete plan to become more green, then financial institutions would still be able to support you financially. So I think this is something that I would like to make it clear. Okay, thank you very much, the representative from Bank of Thailand. Moving on to SME Bank. First of all, I would like to congratulate you. So this year, I have to say that SME Bank, you have gotten the most improved SFI award in 2022. So when we talk about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, what are the issues that SME Bank prioritize and what are the challenges?
So I have to thank Fair Finance for using the ESG indicators to drive our organizations so that we can create sustainability. I think this is a very good idea that whether like commercial banks or the government's banks could work on and improve on and apply to our own business. So before we go into the detail of ESG from SMED Bank, I like to say that we have to prioritize ESG because the challenges in the country and in the world has changed tremendously in many aspects, and it's urgent and it's rapid, and some of the aspects impact the economic tremendously, whether on the change of the socio-political conflict or environmental challenges, natural disasters, diversity of the beliefs of genders, of generations, and the challenges on the rapid growth of technology and the challenges that the regulators has issues policy, not just BOT but other regulators as well, that they would come up with more criteria to protect consumers. So these all around challenges make all organizations, including financial institutions and SMED Bank, to include all these criteria in reviewing our own policies. So we believe that the indicators about ESG could be utilized to drive the organization to have a better growth. And SMED Bank, we are the government's financial institutions under the Ministry of Industry and the Ministry of Finance. And we have a visions to be a government financial institution that provides all around services. And we trying to make entrepreneurs and investor grow. So we does not give the money to entrepreneurs, but we provide them knowledge, we provide them networks, we provide them opportunities for them to develop their potentials, and so that they could impact to the society, the communities, and the environment, or even the economy as a whole. So ESG is no longer avoidable, and it's something that our company has to grow with, and it has to be used to drive the company forward. So we listen to Fair Finance, right? And Fair Finance has done the assessment on the financial institution that's make their policy public about E or S or G. So we review the policies that we have on ESG as SMED Bank. It's a government financial institution, and we have clear visions and missions that we have to develop the potential as SMED. So we take a look at how can we apply the ESG indicators to use with our policies. And the Fair Finance has come and help us look at our documents, look at our news, look at our public documents. So I'm going to give you a brief story on like how we done it. We call this Fair Finance in action. Some of these we written in policies and some are not, but these are something that our companies has been doing, and we're trying to adapt and to help our entrepreneurs in the past. So we're trying to drive the companies with environmental friendliness, and we're trying to create a positive impact or try to reduce the negative impact towards the environment. And the first thing that we are working on is something that we doing directly is that the as BOT said that they want the us or the banks to change, and for us to be able to discuss with our the company who lends from us or who borrows from us, to be able to drive them towards sustainability and toward more environmentally friendly. So we can look at stakeholders, we can look at the regulators, we can look at the communities that all surroundings who are all stakeholders in our aspects, and we're trying to look at them all when we look at environment. And what we do is that what we do with direct policy, for example, is doing like the campaign during like electricity reduction, the reducing plastic. We try to change our own companies, using solar rooftop for certain branches, especially on the brands that use a lot of electricity. And then for fuel fossils burning, we're trying to use hybrid instead where we could. And also we're trying to digitize some of our documents to reduce the paper used. So these are within the organization that we're trying to be more environmentally friendly. And this is the direct actions that we do. And for the indirect one, for the positive impact towards environment. So we as in financial institutions, we help the entrepreneurs. We give what we call BCG loan. So it's just not environmentally friendly, but it's a credit that we give to entrepreneurs who have and who considers biodiversities and circular economy, all green in reducing the emissions toward the environment. So we give credit to the BCG loan to entrepreneurs. And then we work with our partners, whether like from government or the private companies. And in the past, we're trying to work with the councils of industries or educational institutions like Pratam Gatunburi to apply BCG model with productions. We come up with campaign to use the BCGs in the academic field. Second, it's prioritizing our surrounding communities and stakeholders. So as SMED Bank, we are bank that is not focused on credit, but on the entrepreneurship development as well. So we try to strengthen our entrepreneurs to be sustainable, to be financially independent, to be able to tap into the market, to access the investment money. So, and this is the role that we're trying to develop with our entrepreneur as well for them to be able to grow independently. We give them financials, literacies to our customers, to our entrepreneurs who does not have a chance to access money yet. And also for communities that lacks financial literacies, we would provide training for them so they would understand and be more financially literate. And then another aspect, we also look at the workers or the employees. We take care of human rights for the work for about 2,200 workers who work with us in different branches across the country. And we has give the Human Rights Award so that we can send the message to the MD directly to for MD of each bank or each branch to be able to hear the voice directly from the employees. So these may not seem new for commercial banks, but for a state enterprise bank, this is quite new and it's something we're trying to do and we're trying to improve to take care of our stakeholders better. And lastly, on governance, this is something that we have been working on. And as we are under the care of BOT, as now BOT has regulated us, they have implemented policies that we have used to drive our organizations. And we think that these policies are important and we work on the GRC, which is on the governance, risk, and compliance to follow the rules and regulations for internal control for the organization to drive forward and to work with the second line, third line to allow the organizations to be more clear and more transparent and be more efficient, as well as managing risk. And we also work on risks of the organization. So we utilize many tools. So we want the entrepreneurs, once they receive the money, we want them to be able to have certain knowledge about finance and they can use the money that they have to work on their business and then we would monitor how well they use that money for their business and they we could provide the right resources for them to develop their business and to grow their business. So these are our views towards ESG and towards using ESG in our organization. Thank you so much from Kun Mo Kun from SMED Bank. Next, I would like to hear from TTB, who are awarded every year. And this year, you have two awards. You have the highest award of this year, and also you have like the highest improvement award for the last 5 years. So, if TTB, if you could give us a lot of details, how do you prioritize this, and what is the challenge that you're going through, and what you could improve on? So, at first, we have to thank Fair Finance Thailand truly, because many indicators around the world, there's a lot of ESG indicators, and but fair finance indicators are pretty specific to the banking sectors. So these are the indicators that could improve the banking sector of Thailand, and it raises the bar so that ESG could be embedded in the business. So we have to thank Fair Finance Thailand for providing us with these indicators and improving our business. So as for TTB, so for these ESG, we prioritize this highly. It's in our corporate strategy. We embedded it in the business um, operation. So it's embedded in our annual strategy. And you can see that our corporate KPIs, 10% belong to sustainability KPIs. So it actually measures the improvement of the ESG of in our business operation. So for TTB, we try to build a framework to cover all aspects, whether E or S or G, and then we do the B plus, which is business sustainability, because we want to work on the financial and non-financial to increase the sustainability for all. And this is not from the top executive, from board of directors. Sustainability is ingrained in all of our business, and it's report to the board of directors regularly. So the board of directors really emphasize on this issue, and they would discuss and they would reflect back the needs and the desire for the ESG of the company. I like to talk about three issues. The So the first ESG is financial well-being, which is the theme that the bank drives toward. And then we have financial inclusion and responsible lending and climate initiative. We're not going to mention G as much, but to be commercial bank for G, BOT has the highest criteria. In being a bank, the governance itself is quite intensive. So for as for today, we would like to give information more on E and S. TTB tried to really push financial well-being. We want Thai people or our customers to have a good financial well-being. For example, they know how to save, they know how to spend, they know how to borrow, and they have sufficient protections. So starting from saving for TTB all free, because we start from TMB that everything is free. We reduce the fee as much as we can, and we promote saving. As for investment, you may heard about smart port as one. You can begin to invest without at one part. You may not have any knowledge about investment, Before, we may focus on wealth, you may have a lot of money, but right now TTB focus on people that they don't have to have amass so much wealth. They can begin investment with us and we can advise them. So we did the smart part, and then we would have RM portfolio manager who would take care of their portfolio. So this is financial inclusions for Thai people. So how to save in the future and how to keep saving. So these are products that we have. Another part is for financial inclusions. We have debt consolidation that we're trying to work with BOT to consolidate debts from different places because the customers may have debts from many places, and we're trying to um, make our customer not to create NPL. So we trying to consolidate that debt. For example, the project that we have on like TTB home loan, we trying to fix on credit risk. For example, right now same-sex couples can now access home loans, endorsing TTB's objective to promote equalities. And then for environment, I'm sorry, not environment. Another one is for financial inclusion that we're trying to do is on digital transformation because banking pros digital, and we're trying to include all the credits and credit programs and applications. So all the services are available on digital platforms. So that's how we promote financial inclusion, that everyone can use this our application and they can access all services. As for environmental, the E, as bank is quite lucky because since 2018 or even before 2018, the bank have the shareholders that are Europeans companies, so they include those environmental responsibility under our policies. That we have like exclusion list or ENS risk. So as we adopt these policies, so we work on the environmental and social responsibility. So we work on this peer pressure, on this global trend, and we try to exclude all the industry that impact the environment. Like for example, like coal power plants, coal mining, be excluded from our portfolio, and we're trying to fund out to zeros. For example, like tobacco, we're going to run it down to make it zeros to not be in our port. So this is half year, and we check with RM. We almost get 199.9% that tobacco will be excluded from our list. As for coal mining, coal fire plants, we want it to be zero by 2018. 2028. So the portfolio of the bank itself is not big, so it's easier for us to make a move to exclude certain lists or to include ENS. In the future, we have a plan to take care of this better, whether it's a criteria for fair finance that would ask us to exclude from oil and shale gas or S&P GSA. So we're trying to raise the bar, for example, like excluding Arctic oil, and we will keep updating our policies. The bank doesn't just look at the risks at E, but we also look at opportunities. So there are certain sides that, okay, we're not going to fund this industry or these organizations anymore, but we also look at our customers that we're trying to build more ESG product. For example, like green loan or green bond sustainability link loan TTB Bank trying to come up with products to support our customer and do ESG advisories to talk about the criteria that may come up in the future. For example, the criteria that may come up from the United States or the EU. So these are in the future that TTB would like to work on with our customers because we exclude a lot of industries out of our list already or our portfolio already. So we work on the other side as well and trying to increase the environmental industries. And you may ask about like the future in TTB, what the ESG who work with the banks. So before you go into that, I want TTB to promote a little bit more because you have 200 than 10 million baht for financings for green cane, right? And to reduce PM 2.5, please promote away. Can we go to the appendix? So not I'm gonna take just a minute. This project, the TTB work with Midpon, and we call this sustainability linked loan. It's quite a new product on how can we give a loan to customers and to reduce the environmental impact. So everyone faced everyone is aware of the impact of PM 2.5 already. And so we look at the industry that actually create PM 2.5, and cane is one of that. Producing sugar is one of that. So we were thinking, how could we manage this? So we talked to Midpon because actually Midpon, you want the fresh cane more than the burn cane, right? Because the productivity from fresh canes is actually better than burn cane. And so, but we are also thinking, how can we reduce the rate of cane burning in farmers? So, if Mipon can use the green cane, and this can be linked to our ESGs, because with burn cane, it increases PM 2.5. So, our scheme is very simple. We would reduce the interest rate if you reduce burn canes. So we would go and discuss with the farmers. If the farmer doesn't know how to cut the fresh canes, we talk to Kubota, who has the technologies to cut the cane to deliver fresh cane to Midcon. And we also come up with e-wallets on how them gain the money after they're sending this fresh cane. So we could so once Midcon get fresh cane, they get a good score on ESG and we reduce the interest rate for them. So this is one of the example of the products we come up with the companies to make the loan more sustainable. The performance, the KPI has not come out yet. Once we get the result, we could show a little bit more. And then this probably come out in the next year sustainability report for the TTB. So thank you so much for the head of sustainabilities. So so for SMED Bank, do you have any actions further? And the people, the civil society, how could they check on this? Because some of the, let's see, for customers who work with the bank, they might be good, but some of the projects that is our trouble, that are troublesome. For example, like BCG's projects that like through APEC meetings has been highly criticized, that in their action plans they support GMO, they support like seed competitions through UPOP 1991. They use chemical toxins and they buy garbage in Thailand, which create PM 2.5. So how could civil societies or people monitors the action of the banks? That's my question.
All right, so I'll answer first. For TTB, in order for us to inspect the operations of the banks, you may ask, how do we do that? So it's not like auditing how clients is using the bank service and all that. But I would like to share that the practices that we do, whether it be financial or non-financial, we do reports and we do both sustainability report and also other report. So we check on the ESG activities and performance. And we also have the guiding principles on what would be the next actions to take. And also for the banks, when we come up with policy, we ensure that we actually stick to that policy and we do according to policy, not just having the policy as is. And this would show the transparency of the bank, whether they do what they commit to do or not. Just like I said, that at the end of the day, the performance will reflect whether or not they do what they say they would do, or if they achieve what they say that they would achieve. And on those results, we see that there are some of the ones that they commit and they can achieve it. There are some of the ones that they have committed but they fail to achieve. For example, some of them, they have the target to lower the use of electricity and water, but at the end of the day, they could not do it. Or even for some other reports, when we keep on evaluating, we will know what are the loopholes, what are the rooms for improvements. We will know what to change and what to make better. And so we have to see if they actually execute what is written on the policy. And in order for us to check on that, we will be able to check on the reports, whether it be financial or non-financial report. Okay, thank you. How about SMED Bank? For us, we are government entities. So on the inspection, it would be done via different channels, whether it be Facebook, Line, other newsletters. And if you have any inquiries, you can contact us via call center. And also, if there are any complaints, you can also raise complaints to the government entities. And we also have fact-checked department. So of course, our operation is transparent. The way we work is very clear. Now, if you ask if we execute what we say we would do in the policy, especially on ESG and specifically on environmental issue. So we have what we call BCG loan. We work with different stakeholders and partners in private sectors to issue them BCG loans. We also educate them. We also create a network so that the entrepreneurs, they are aware of the rights that they have. And if you'd like to keep track if we are doing what we say we would do, because we say that we have certain amount of loan that we would issue to our different businesses. For example, we say that we have 10,000 million Thai baht for this BCG loan. Then you can check on all the loans that we issue and the amount that we issue. So it's quite transparent. And in a minute, we will show you more success cases. Success case would be one of the great evidence that you can see that we are doing what we are doing. And I have to say that our this success case is not the contribution from us alone, but it's also from the SMEs, from the entrepreneurs. They have these great principles and they just want more funding to enable that. And so we as a supporters, we help them, connect them with other network businesses. And that is the reason why we have many success cases. For example, the first one, Macron Thai Engineering. So they work on food processing, on the coconut shell. So they change these coconut shell into coals, and this is environmental friendly. And the second one is sky on. They also have BCG mindset. They dry fish durians. So during durian season, a lot of durians will come out. So they learn how to preserve this food by fry grease them so that they can sell it all year round instead of during just that durian season. And we also have Thaias. They might not have that many sales yet, but they do have BCG mindset. So they make use of the leather scraps and process them into usable products. You can see that this would help lower carbon emission and help with recycling. We also have another success case, Papa Paper. So they produce papers in environmental friendly way. For example, they use this paper pulp from coffee, from corns, and so it becomes new business for them. These are just some of the examples to show you that we, SME Bank, we give the knowledge and we give fundings to these businesses so that they can grow further. And we believe that this would be one of the evidence to show you that we take actions on our policy. So we are working closely with the Bank of Thailand taxonomy to see what else we can do to help the entrepreneurs, what products or services we can create based on the BCG concept. And we are trying to see what are other things that we can create. So BCG is one aspect under ESG, which is very important. Thank you very much. I believe that those of you who are watching via Fair Finance Thailand, you are interested in this issue as well. And there's a question saying that there are some campaigns that civil society raised questions during APEC conference. What is your response on that? Well, so for on BCG loan, we work with many partners like the Ministry of Industry. And so we are working with many government entities. We are trying to apply these BCG concepts in the way we work. And it is one of the criteria that we take when issue loans. Any other questions from those who are here? If not, I have a question for you. So you know that that's this bank run situation in Switzerland, in Europe. Those banks that were so credible, people trust them a lot, it crashed. So for you as regulator, what are the measures that you might have that you would ensure that Thai banks would be safe and credible, that none of these things would happen to us? So when we talk about stability, it is the heart of banks, right? So when we talk about stability of financial institutions, we do prioritize on this a lot. So we must have prudential regulations on these institutions. And Bank of Thailand is working closely on this. You can see that when that's the bank run situation in Europe, we also come up with statements saying what impacts would it have on us and what impacts would it not have on us. So I would like the public to remain trust in us. How about the two banks? What are the things you'd like to communicate to the public? So as we know that those situations that happen in the States, their portfolio and our portfolio look different. But of course, we can take what happened to them as a lesson. For banks, we need to talk to each other. How can we cope with these situations? Because who knows, it might happen to us too. So we have to revisit on how we manage our portfolio to ensure that if anything happens, our banks will not crash. How about SME bank? So we are actually, as FI, the Ministry of Finance is also taking shares in our bank. So I don't have too much worries on that. However, when we talk about risk management, banks in the States, they had bank run issue, which I think that the regulating entities or regulators, they would need to work more closely with the banks in the States. They have to be more strict. So I think it's the system problem. Okay, thank you. So that's the first panel that we talk about the future of Thai banks on ESG. So we touch upon different policies and we can see positive trends from Thai banks. So you can see that for Thai banks, we are not just saying that we want it to be good on paper, but we also audit the performance. We also audit the operation if we stick to the policy we commit. So thank you for sharing. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you, Mogu Posayapisit, Senior Executive Vice President from SME Bank. Thank you, Kamonpan Laksana, Head of Sustainability, TMB Thanachart Bank. And thank you, Siripim Vimolchalao, Director of Financial Institution Strategy Development Bank of Thailand. A big round of applause for them, please. Now we will have 15 minutes break. We will come back at 3:35. Outside, we have delicious refreshments for you. And once we come back, we will talk about the future of Thai banks ESG from stakeholders' perspective. So see you again at 3:35.
All right, so distinguished guests, if you can come back to the meeting room, please. So, in the meantime, I have looked at the fairfinance website.org. If you're at home or you're in here and you like to access the website, you would see the score of each bank this year and you see the rankings. As we said, that TTB has the highest rank at 42.56, and you can look at the details of each categories. So, and you can compare between two banks as well to create a good competitive environment. For example, like Bank A and Bank E, if you're thinking about putting in your 10 million baht into this bank and which bank you between A and B you want to put the money into, you can use these as criteria as well. So, welcome back, all distinguished guests, to the public forum of the fifth annual ESG assessments of Thai financial institutions, how to create a fair and sustainable future for fair finance Thailand. So early in the afternoon, we have talked to regulators like BOT, and we have talked to commercial bank, which is TTB, and we have talked to specialized financial institutions by the government, which is SMED Bank. And we've discussed about the ESG futures. And this late afternoon, we are going to talk to stakeholders. And I have four speakers here. So some of them are partner from Fair Finance, and some of them work in the field of the assessing health well-being of health. So on my right side, next to me, is Kun Pianpon, the TED Thailand campaign director from International Rivers. Next is Kun Suphapon Malayloi, manager from El Law Foundation. So these two are representatives from the Fair Finance partner. And then another is Ms. Narumon Meg Borisut, Deputy Director of Rights Protection Unit of Foundation for Consumers. And last but not least, Ms. Sompon Pengkam. We call her practitioners of community health impact assessment practitioners. So if you want to do an assessment on well-being in the communities, here is one of the top practitioners of the country. Because the score that Fair Finance did, so we did to discuss with the information that the bank publicly opened, right? And this making them public to the making by making them public whether it works or not, it requires monitoring. That's why we have all these civil society or these organizations that come into discuss with that and come into discussion. For example, like the dam building right here, and there's many like banks or companies that promotes this dam building. So I'm going to present a case studies that Fair Finance has made it into English document and just recently translated, and we sent to BOT and the banks that are involved that they might give a loan to Luang Prabang Dam. So we're studying about the Luang Prabang Dam, which we call responsible lending for environmental project. So this is the third dam that's going to be built in Mekong River at the northern part of Laos around Luang Prabang, which is not international heritage. The reason we picked this as case study because it's a huge, huge project for at least 1.2 million baht, and this is expected to generate electricity one of the most one of the most dam that will produce most electricities in the areas, and we are quite concerned because this dam, first, there's no necessities to buy any electricities from any electricity plant, whether in the Mekong River, because the it will say that the amount of electricity we have is more than enough, and in some month we have the electricity reserve that exceeds 50%, and all these projects that going on, that if they produce more electricities, this would make people pay the electricity bill even higher. Especially nowadays, they look at the electricity bills right now, and everyone is in awe of the FT price that we are paying. Last year, the FT price was like 1.0 point some stang, and right now it's like 90 stang. FT is part of the component that absorb the cost that we have to pay for producing electricity. So international rivers and Fair Finance Thailand are very, very concerned about giving loans to this Luang Prabang Dam, because it's just not environmental anymore. It's just not governance in managing natural resources, but it's costing Thai people to pay for the electricity bill for 35 years throughout the period of the project. And I think our commercial banks that are considering giving loans to this dam is the impact that may have to Luang Prabang, which is said by UNESCO to be the global heritage. So, and the Heritage Committee said that the impact from the dam that could impact Luang Prabang could be very tremendous. And I quote from the committee themselves that they says the result of the study that said that the impact of the heritage could not be satisfactory as to why the Luang Prabang Dam in the water would not impact the heritage or the OU of the Mekong rivers, and the practice on the religions, on cultures, and local communities. Therefore, this project should be halted, and Luang Prabang Dam should be removed or relocated to other areas that will not impact the area of heritage. So Luang Prabang areas or Luang Prabang Dam, it is not about Mekong River or for Thai electricity users, and but it belongs to like global population because of global heritage. So I hope that this case study that Fair Finance Thailand has done and document and deliver to all banks, and that banks would consider very well if they are considering giving loans to this Luang Prabang Dam. Another case study that I like to present here that Fair Finance Thailand has done this year, and we discuss about the impact on human rights that many banks prioritize, especially human rights on workers and employees. One more issues that I want the banks to consider is for the impact of the people who will live around the Luang Prabang Dam area. So people around 28,000 people would be impacted if the Luang Prabang Dam project would be commenced. And this is involuntary, and they would have to be forced to migrate had the dam taken place. So For the criteria of giving responsible credit, I think the banks has to consider this very, very well. And this contract that made with EGAT from last year without making it public or to people, this contract could impact people very greatly. And during the dissolutions of parliament, they signed another project with the Khön Pak Lai Dam, and the size is the same to Luang Prabang Dam. And this is during the court process and waiting to be signed. And that's another project, Khön Pak Bang or Dam. So these are three projects of the dams on Mekong River that would enter the electricity system of Thailand. And I believe that all Thai people have a right to questions as why we have to pay for the electricity price for these electricity plants that are not necessary to the country at all. And I truly hope that the banks will consider the loans that they might have given to these projects and use the documents provided by Fair Finance wisely. Um, why International Rivers and Fair Finance Thailand partner? Why they emphasize on these 11 banks? Is there information or other banks, did they not pay attention to this to give the money to this project? So this is the second project from the owner who used to own Sayaburi, and commercial bank has given loans to Sayaburi Dam project already, and the information was not public. Whose which bank would give the loan to the dam project? So for us, this is into sending these documents that include the documents from UNESCO as well as sending to these banks. I hope these banks would consider before giving loans. So for the past 5 years, International Rivers as partner, how much do you hope from this? So 20 years in doing work with Mekong River, I have never seen any project that has been stopped or complained by UNESCO before. This is the first time. And then there's another project that's at the south of Laos, and this we call Pungoi Dam, and that's going to impact on the heritage as well. And that's also concerns Thai company. I think that's the fourth or fifth project. But now we focus on these three projects, which is Luang Prabang Dam, Pak Lai Dam, and Pak Bang Dam. And Luang Prabang Dam is the one that we are most concerned about. So I like to emphasize on all financial institutions. So this is not regional, but is global, as environmental issue is sensitive and the heritage issue is involved. Next, I like to invite in-law คุณสุพันธ์พาพานมาลัยลอย manager from in-law foundations. So you've heard a lot about BCG model from the last panel discussions, whether like green economies, circular economies, or the bio circular economy. So how does Ella think about this issue? Thank you so much. And as the last panel discussion has talked about, I think it's very important to look at this together and discuss this together. So besides BCG, what's important that I look at the bank and the credit given by banks? We see that we see the progress and improvement of the banks, and many banks have discussed about it, and Fair Finance has follow up and keep score, and they pay attention to the environment and sustainability, and they look at human rights as well. So we see these trends that are improving, and they have documents that are open to public with clarity. As Kun Kanika has said, and I have researched and I've seen that many banks, they look at BCG, and they look at the environmental aspect, and also because BCG is the government's policy that they would support the businesses as a green, and they provide specific loan for BCG, that the um, organizations or the business that belong to BCG models, they can access this loan directly. And I understand that the bank itself, so since this is the government policy and they look at sustainability, the bank will see that in giving these loan, they trying to push forward and trying to open channel for the business to access. However, so besides the banks, these business, they get the tax exemptions as well. But I think what's important that the bank could not just look at this. I think the bank, because as far as I look at the bank policies, they have to, in for them to judge whether the business is sustainable or green or not. The bank would judge by just the law or legal issues. And if this business has followed the law, it would say that these business would already belong to BCG model. However, because a law work on legal, right, and work for an environment, we think that the bank has to consider beyond just legal aspect according to the law, according to the government, because I think sometimes the law is troublesome and there's a gap in the law that could lead to human rights violations and could lead to impact on the community. For example, like the activities that's in the BCG, and sometimes we look at this green, for examples for like the alternative energies or like circular energies, we would see that the declaration from the ministry who overlook at the environment, they actually write the policies that enable the electricity plant on garbage or like on biomass for 10 megawatts and over, they have to do PRA. What does it mean? It means that the law would say that this declaration it's not good, and they undermines the effort to make the garbage plant more clean. But I think because since the law is not very just, it's very important for banks to look at other aspects beside the law as well. So since they don't have to do the PRE, there's another law that you have to consider, because it's about the location of this if this biomass plant or the other garbage plant or even the garbage management roadmap. So it undermines a lot of the garbage management. And this belong to the Khososho for decorations. And then they talk about an area in the community where they would set up whether that area should have or not have the activity regarding to the green management. So, but in these declarations from the government resolution, it said that if it's a garbage plant or is it biomass plant, they don't have to look at the map of the city. They can be located anywhere. So this actually undermines the impact of the environmental friendliness of the cities. We're trying to get these resolution annulled, but it's still work, but it's still functioning. So this is the situation that take place. So there are many garbage situations in Thailand. But then when the government only look at the garbage management at the end stream, or like increasing landfill or increasing garbage plant, but they undermine the environmental policy. So there are many troubles or issues. So, for example, in Bangkok, if you live near Onut, you can go to Onut plant, and they promote that Bangkok or the government take part in taking care of this Onut plant. But this could only take place with that resolutions of the four from to 555 BE's resolutions. But before these resolutions, it's impossible to locate a garbage plant here. So because of these resolutions, many plants that should not have been there in the community have been located in the communities. And these come from the earth, and they look at the data very well. So this is for the past and there are many people. So throughout these 5 years, so there are many plants that have should not been there but has been there because due to the resolutions by the government, and there are tremendous impact. I think the banks themselves, they you have to monitor and you have to check. I don't know whether you give loans to these plants or not. And it's just not legally binding and just not like following the government policy. But sometimes they still like violate human rights and violates the rights of the community. And this is what ILO does. And we do in the special economic zones in the East area. And then this is the roadmap that we open up for to locate the waste plant, and we look at the number. So we pin in the map, right? As you've seen in there in the industrial area, we found there are about like 900 waste plants in seven provinces. So these are legal, but there are many illegal plants that exist as well. So this 925, they get certified from the government, but for the impact area. So for banks, you as the person who give loans, how would you consider the impact of these waste plants where even though they are legal, they're the policy of the alternative energy as well. We will look at how if we look at the east side of the country, to increase the areas for the sugar cane into like 10 million, right? That's a huge change to the ecosystems. And those who would gain the access to these area would be the business that are close to the government. So these all would undermine the environmental policies. So I think that the policies so the government policies or the law that issued by the government does not guarantee the justice of the law itself. So we hope that in giving loan from the bank, they would consider facts that are actually in the area, and you would just not consider whether these belong to the government policies or whether it's legal or not. And sometimes it's not green, it could be gray, and it could violate human rights, it would violate local community rights, and it would violate biodiversities of the communities. And once the impact take place, it's very hard to take care of. So therefore, in giving loans, you might guarantee the money back to the community because it's the government's policies. As you said about the contract of electricities, so when the contract is on, you sure that you'll get the money. But then the impacts would be on the people. So we have to think about this aspect as well. So you have to look at the fact of the area as well. So
So all the institutions that focus on ESG, you can see that from in-law presentation. Whenever we talk about renewable energy, we have to put on the quotation mark that it might not exactly be renewable. So you can learn more on BCG concept. And in Bangkok, we know that right now we are facing PM 2.5 crisis. As you can see from the map just now, the waste disposal area and even the electrical plant area is all surrounded Bangkok. And so that's why we have a lot of pollution. So next up, I would like to hear from Sompon, operational officer, your community health impact evaluation operational officer, and you'll be sharing with us more on Hong Sa power plant. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Fair Finance for inviting me to be here and also give me the opportunity to share with everyone on the work plan. I think it is a great opportunity. Also, this is the first time for me to join on stage as a panelist. I'm quite excited. So, what I'm sharing with you today, normally we would only talk among the operational officers and all those responsible stakeholders. However, for today, I'd like to share on this thing with the banks. So, it is very essential, very important to me. So, first of all, let's talk about ESG. For me, I just get to know more about ESG. And when I know that I was invited to be here, I learned more about ESG. And I think it is great that right now the banks and financial institutions are working more on ESG and also they care more about the people that they give loans to, which I believe that when we do this, people well-being could be improved. Or if we don't exercise correctly, then their life quality could be worse as well. So it's good that we come and study more on this. And on ESG personally, I think that if we take it seriously, it is going to be beneficial to all and it would help us to achieve sustainability goals. And of course, in a way, it is a challenge for us to exercise ESG concept in banks. Now, when we talk about Hong Sa or Hong Sa power plant, you may think that it has something to do with Myanmar, but actually it is not. Hong Sa is a city name in Laos, and Hong Sa power plant is in Laos. But I have to say, actually, the people who operate it are Thai. because the power plant that we are working on, it is owned by Rajburi Group by 40%, Banpu Group by 40%, and Laos Holding State Enterprise by 20%. And we have to say that the investment amount of 3.71 billion USD, it comes from 9 banks in Thailand, namely Bangkok Bank, SCB, Krung Thai, GSB, K Bank, Krungศรี Thanachart, and TMB Bank, and also Exim. So all this information is on Hongsa Power Plant website. And we have the capacity to produce electricity by 1,878 megawatt. That is to be sold to Thailand. So you can see that this is Thai company that we use Thai money, but it just is operated in Laos and then is sent back to sold in Thailand for Thai people to use. You can see here that they actually used coals as well, and we have the dam. So power plant, we need the water to produce electricity. And for these plants is in the Thai-Laos border. If we would like to go there, we can go there by Nan province. It would be the easiest route to get there. So we go through Pua district to Tung Chang to Chalam Prakiat Road all the way to Hongsa City, and it's quite close to Luang Prabang. I have to say that we have very nice road there, so it takes only like 3 hours to get there. And now I have to say that it is the largest electric plant in Laos, and it is the largest coal plant in Southeast Asia. And so we have to do the EIA, or Environmental Impact Assessment report, every year for this power plant. And now when this power plant, it is operated in Laos, so it has to follow Laos regulations. So for the stakeholders, when they want to study the EIA, it is a bit tricky because it's not in Thai territory anymore. And when it is operated in Laos, then Thai stakeholders cannot really take part in this EIA. So the EIA would need to be accessed by Laos only, and they have to just follow Laos regulations. However, we have to say that this is a loophole because in Southeast Asia, we don't have the cross-border regulations on EIA. And we have operated since BE 2553, and they start the official operation in November of BE 2558. Oh, I can't change the slide right now. So when we talk about the coal-fired power plant, it is quite dangerous because first we have to assess the quality of the coal. The coal has 4 grades of quality. And most of the time we just use lignite. For lignite, it is the lowest grade of coals, which means that we need to use a lot of it to generate power. And the more we use, the more pollution we generate. Also, in these mines, they have a lot of heavy metals and mercury. So that has very high risk to contaminate the environment. And also for this air pollution, of course, it would affect Thailand side as well because we are so close. So when we give them loans, and even though banks say that they would have the plans to make it more green, but we still have to do close inspection whether they actually exercise what they say they would do. And you can see that because of this power plant, there's air pollution from Laos side or from Hong Sa that come and affect people in Thailand as well. And we can even do the mathematical plan or the map that we would see the wind direction, that the pollution from Hong Sa would also be blown to Thailand side, which means that all the chemicals in air pollution from Hong Sa area will be blown to Thailand. And Thailand has no measures to tackle that as of now. And that is why we need to study more on EIA on this. Well, in Laos for EIA, they don't even care about PM 2.5. They only measure the level of PM 10. So if we see according to the technical criteria of inspection, they really do not care much about all these chemicals. But this is something that we cannot ignore. So what to do? So from this photo, we can see very clearly without any to, um, without any further conversation that these coal-fired power plants are dangerous to humans. There's no controversy on this. So these coal-fired power plants need to be on the exclusion list. So you can see that all of these businesses that are harmful to humans, they are still operating. So we need to encourage them to use better technology so that they can lower the level of air pollution. And people who live in that area, they have to bear this risk. We have to see how can we maintain their well-being. And also, when we say that we would like to generate opportunities for them, but when these people, even if they get the money, but if they have to live in very bad environment, they can't really operate their business as well. So we have to be able to help them lower the risk. So we have to understand that we cannot just help them financially, we have to also care about other aspects and elements as well. And this is the border. These are the locals there who live in Chalerm Phrakiat area in Nan province. This is the water source they are using. So their main career is to plant and grow these berries, and they never know what would happen to them until recently that they study more about citizen science, and then they found out on the impacts of these pollutions, like how carbon dioxides or other chemicals would affect their water source and air quality, and they study more on the risk. And in our research team right now, we have the surveillance team that we work with the locals, we work with the kids who care about environmental changes and impacts, and we do see the trends of these changes. Even though it is not that harmful right now, but if we don't do anything in the future, there will be really harmful environmental impacts on that area that people can't even live there anymore. So, what can we do to raise awareness on this to the power plant? How can we take this information to talk to the Department of Pollution Control? How can Thai government work with Laos government? There are a lot of stakeholders we need to work with. And at the end of the day, we think that the stakeholder that would be able to collaborate with us best would be the banks who issue them loans. So you see, for banks, you might not only consider whether or not you issue someone loan, but you have to also care that once you issue loans to certain businesses, you have to also have the measures to inspect whether the way they operate affect people who live in that area or not, or affect the environment or not. We need to have the community or a working group who would go and check on this. And if there's something that needs to be done, then they need to help change on this. So I think banks need to really take up this role to lower the impact on community and environment. And if the banks can have these working groups, then we will be able to help protect these people's rights better. This could be a great challenge, I know that, but I would like to encourage the banks to take action on this, to inspect your clients' operation, to see if they use the loans to do good things or not. I'd like to ask you a bit more. Let's say if we talk about Hong Sa power plant, we would like to ask all the 9 banks who give them loans, how can we make positive impacts? What can the banks do? Well, I'd like to go back to the slide with all the banks. It's open data, right? Can you have it up? That slide. So this information is on Hong Sa power plant website. As of right now, what we can do is to ask them to install the mercury detection device. So whether it be ADB or Mekong Commission, they have raised these issues before, because we know that these businesses, they have the risk on releasing mercury. So we have to ask if these power plants have installed mercury detection device. Secondly, We hope that they can install dust and nitrogen oxide detection device. I can see that some of them they have already installed these devices, which that is great. However, from EIA, we still see that there are some acid gas that is blown from Laos side to Thailand side. So we now question the efficiency of this technology. We are questioning, is there anything else we can do to enhance the efficiency of these devices? Third would be on data. We need to share data, especially on the pollution emission, so that we all can be cautious. If the banks can discuss on this with Hongsa power plants, maybe you can require them to give you information that would help everyone. And if you do that, people there would be protected. The risk would be lowered. And also the credibility of the company would be enhanced because the company would show that they have done everything that they can do to protect the people. And third, it would help create trust because if they don't provide this information or if they don't take actions to protect the people would not trust the company, and then it could lead to litigation or court trial, which that would not be the right solution. So it is better that we create trust and we prevent problem from arising. So I think this would be the best solution we can do. Okay, so when we talk about ESG, I understand that. Just like you say that for ESG, it came a bit late. If it came like 10 years ago, all those 9 banks might not have issued the loans to these companies. And for me, I also hope as the inspector that all these operations would be improved. For the past operations, we might have done some mistakes with an environment, but we can still make it right. Now, moving on, I would like to talk to fair finance. So we know that all the banks, they care about their customers, and we have gotten some high scores, right, from the report. Is there anything else we can do for consumers?
So we have to thank the regulator for issuing many regulations for us to cover the issues on consumers protection. However, the issues are quite repeated. So these are just some examples. For example, on debt, from things like default on credit card debt, it is not debt management, but when the government issue regulations to help the debtor, it's sometimes hard for the debtor to access those policies. So when the debtor go to the banks often said that they would have these regulations and the debtor has to follow them. But the debtor are not ready to follow those regulations. So it's quite hard or difficult for the debtor to follow all the criteria to be able to work on their own debt issues. So these are issues we're facing right now. And we still find the same old type of data. For example, like credit card default, personal loans, and interest rates is always an issue. There's no discount that allows the debtor to be able to pay off their debt. Mostly when they approached the bank was said, okay, you have to pay by installment for 10 months, but the debtor actually doesn't have the money to finish the installment by 10 months. So even though they get to talk to the bank, they would come back empty hand. And also because We also mentioned insurance here. Sometimes the insurance company breached the contract. And then the third issue is about the digital platform service. So there's application from the bank that you can make a loan, that you can borrow, and that you can manage your own investments with the application. And we found that the application sometimes that people borrow money from is actually illegal, the information that was hacked. Because so I found it personally, it was the same bank, it sent it with different branch, and it says all my ID number correctly. But I said it's not my ID card. I said, I don't know who you had it from. But if you said yes, yes, this is my ID number, then the call center would ask for more information. So these kind of legal personal data issues that we face every day. So we don't know the measures from the bank, what they have to protect consumers' data. And also there's money shot wrongfully from the applications. Because when we want to use certain service, when we walk to the bank would ask you to download the applications, and you have to confirm your informations at your at the bank. So the bank actually push you to use the application. But when sometimes when money is being charged wrongfully from the application, why is the bank not responsible for it? And then there's a gang, the call center gang issues, and they got all the information of the surrounding people of the users. For example, like the user's relative, they know what phone number we use, they have our information, they have our locations. So I think these issues are actually financial inclusion issues. And whenever these takes place, it's often that the users or the consumers has to take responsibilities by themselves. So it's on us that we allow them to use our own personal data. What I used to propose to the banks, their additional proposals, I think the consumers cannot check the data of what they found. For example, like the borrowing application, they cannot check whether this is legal or illegal. And sometimes the users are not as financially literated to know whether that, like, oh, this kind of digital credit, they have to go to the BOT to check, or whether is legal, is it wrong interest rate. And it's number two is about integrations. Right now, we found that the silos in each department. So the hackers are faster than that. They can hack within 5 seconds. But for us to be able to contact that department and this department, it could take up to 5 weeks or months before we actually get the money back, or we never get the money back. But when the law is being issued or regulations being issued, we always found that is on the consumers to take responsibilities. And often enough, if it's not being heard on the news, we cannot find a systematic way of solving the problems. So we talked about consumer protection on fraud, right? From the getting money from the applications, or we get the fake account. This technological crime is very important. So even though we have the law on technological crime already, there is still a gap in the law For example, that like, so we, let's say we buy something and then we pay the money for it, but then we found out later that we were being cheated on, and then so it takes up 3 to 4 days, and we could not get the money back, and this is not covered under the new law of the technological crime. So this is being questioned right now. So I think regulators like BOT or the Royal Thai Police have to rethink the measures and review whether these kind of fraud could fall under the latest law that's being issued on technological crime. So if we can transfer the money, if we can, so let's say, is it possible for the user themselves to be able to stop the transaction midways once they know that that transaction is illegal or wrong? Why do we have to wait for the bank to to stop the transaction for us? And then, because the whole process takes place once we know, and it takes a long time, we have to go to the police will have to tell the bank to stop the transaction, and it takes a really long time, and we cannot stop this. So this technological crime, they should be able to stop the steps before it take place. For example, if we see that these websites are suspicious or the website is not legal, these websites should be stopped down before. So, or other measures, for example, like compensations, is not in here. The compensations for the victims. The latest law talk about the money charge on applications. So they file the case to the court that they would not know, that the victim didn't know that the application would be taken money off. So they sued the bank to get the money back. But the court said, well, the first court and the appeal court said that it's the, it says comma for the users himself. But eventually, when it goes to the highest court, it said that have to pay half by half because our personal data, we own them, but the bank has to have measures to protect these personal data and have to protect their service. So it's the responsibility for the money that's been lost is half half. The user is responsible for half the money that's being taken away, and then the bank is responsible for another half. So right now, people are being alert, or they are being very aware. So we want the measures to come out now. So now that we have these new technologies or new way of using the new channels for the banks, so we do not know at all how safe it is. How could we make these applications more safe? How should we borrow this money from online? And then for us to know, like, if we have to be careful when certain signs are present. But mostly users will not know. They were just like, okay, I download the application, I put in the personal data, I don't know what to look for. But the financial institution should be able to inform us what kind of information we would be able to put in and what kind of size of it present we have to be careful or looked out for. So we have to be able to protect these data, and we have not seen this measure yet. So I think right now that there are many people who are using more and more technologies on financial applications, and we are moving toward cashless societies. So I think those who have not accessed these yet are actually more than people who are already using technologies. I think the victims mainly are on like elder people who doesn't know anything about online. Let's say they receive elder people receive a call from call center and they provide all the information correctly, so elder give them all the informations, And these cashless societies involves a lot of departments, from the phone companies to the internet companies. So like if you go to up country and internet is not stable, how would you use the internet application to draw money from the bank? And now that the internet concessions is owned by only two companies, and we do not know the payment that we have to make in the future. Do we have to pay more for the internet? And for if we are unable to do financial access, then you have to go to the branch eventually. So this gap of technological knowledge, it's actually large, that a lot of people still don't know about these technological information. Right now, there's measures after the issues have taken place, but there are no measures to prevent. So, when the banks launch your product, you should inform the gap beforehand. So, thank you so much, Kun Narumon from Foundation for Consumers. My last questions to all the three organizations. So, in the last 5 years, what kind of development or progress you see from the banks in Thailand? And what would you like to see in the future? And at some point, if you could give the final answers. So now that you know that there is this kind of assessment, is there any hope from your side? And what do you wish to see in the future? So we'll start with Kun Pai. So the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of progress. um, the bank would say that they adopt equator principles, or they do exclusion lists for the projects that has environmental impact. So and this actually a step towards ESG. So it's all in written documents, and now we have to look at the practice. And a lot of things that may be legal, but it may not be fair. So I think the banks has to go beyond what's said in the legal documents. And how could we build like the fair and more just banking system, so that you can go to ESG where you leave no one behind, where it's all inclusive. So we can get like clean air. This is such a low bar. Nowadays we see that like all the sediments are in the air, and it's just not in the northern project. It's it's into Phuket, it's into Stone, just not Bangkok. So we want to see this justice. It may be legal, but it's not, but it's unjust. So justice is something that I want all the banks to think about.
Similarly, I think banks are very important and they play very essential role to help business move forward. During the past 5 years, as you can hear from what Kun Pai said, many banks have the intentions to work on human rights and take care of environment. So I believe that in the future, what we can do is we can communicate more with stakeholders, including people, community, private sectors who work closely with the civil society and citizens. Because as of right now, you can see that without careful inspection and collaboration, there could be breach of contracts, there could be harm to environment. So of course, if we can have better communication, if we can discuss more, then the banks can work better with stakeholders. I do understand that the banks may not be able to help lower the environmental impacts by businesses. But as a part of this cycle, then of course the bank can still do something as the intermediary to help all different stakeholders on this. Also, if banks see that there are some policies that do not look okay to issue loans to, then the banks should really be more prudent on this. So if there are some of the policies or regulations that need to be amended, the banks can also raise that issues to the government to make changes. And I believe that conference like today's by Fair Finance will not be held only annually, but should be held more often so more people get to learn on this. I think that the inspecting measures, as of right now, it seems as if Bank of Thailand is the only one working on this, but it should not be like this because I think that all banks should take part in this. All the banks' policy, we all need to be inspecting the businesses that we should loan to. And also, we need to assign inspectors to inspect the bank as well to check if the bank operate according to their policy. There are a lot of loopholes right now. There are a lot of things that happen because the policy is not comprehensive. So I think we really do need inspectors, and we need to keep monitoring the business operations and the bank's operation. We have to see if what the bank report is actually what the bank is doing. And once we do that, we'll be able to tell if those policies are efficient or not, or if those policies can actually help solve problem or not. You can see that during the past 5 years, what Fair Finance is doing is effective because for us, we are on operation side. We can see that when we start to regulate all these banks, the banks change the way they work. Back in the old days, when we go into the bank teller, they always sell us a lot of financial products, but now it's different. The customers have the right to choose. So when we keep monitoring, we'll be able to set clear directions better. And I can see that it gets better every year. We should keep on working on this. And also, we will have expansion on the banking, financial service, and products. And I'm happy to hear that. Of course, for Fair Finance, we will have the assessment on these digital services as well. Yes, it's true. It's in our day, like everyday life now. If we learn from the lessons of those who do impact assessment, especially on international level, we will see that banks and financial institutions are leaders of change. Whether it be the guidelines on health impact assessment or EIA, if we take a look back at the former versions, it will come from World Bank or ADB. But now it is getting better. And if we trace back to the past, World Bank and ADB, when they issue loans, they also have the guidelines saying that if you take loan from us, you have to operate in a certain way that would not destroy the environment. And do you still remember like 10 years ago when we tried to promote health assessment? We also say that we need to work closely with financial institutions like financial institutions in Hong Kong saying that whoever take loans from us, they have to operate in a certain way. So banks and financial institutions that issue loans, you are very important. You are the one who set the boundaries on what businesses can do to the environment. So I believe the banks can set clear guidelines so that you have very clear framework of what they can do and what not. And if the businesses do not comply to those framework or regulations, you may have some penalty for them. For example, you may increase the interest rate, or if they do comply and they are good doers, then maybe you can lower the interest rate. And I believe that what Fair Finance is doing right now, it is great. I support you. I hope you continue to do this work. And I think it would be great if you allow the public to participate in your work. Maybe you can have a platform that public can give you more information so that in practice we'll be able to monitor if the businesses do what they say they would do. And last, I think when we generate the report, if you come up with a lot of graphs, it might be a bit hard for people to understand. So I think it would be better if we can also provide evidences. We can give case studies and we can provide qualitative information. For example, for Hong Sa power plant, we can explain what we can do, what are the rooms for improvement. If we talk about these cases openly to public, the power of public will pressure these businesses to follow the regulations, and that would lead to fairness. Thank you very much. Thank you all financial institutions for sharing these insights with us. And when Bank of Thailand say that they are ready to support financial institutions to work sustainably, especially on ESG, environment, social, and governance, then of course civil society would be more than happy to support financial institutions too. And yes, I do agree that people's voices need to be heard because ESG is the finish line or is the goal that all the banks are supposed to achieve, and we all would like to support you. So thank you very much all the panelists. Thank you the community health impact evaluation operational officer. Thank you Narumon Mek Borisut from Foundation of Consumers. Thank you representative from InLaw and also a representative from International Rivers. Thank you very much once again. And on behalf of Fair Finance, which comprised of InLaw, International Rivers, South Forest, Foundation for Consumers, and Earth, we would like to thank you everyone once again for being here. Thank you for following us. Also, thank you those who are watching us live. You can learn more on Fair Finance fan page and also fairfinancethailand.org. All the PowerPoint presented today by the banks, we will upload there so you can just follow up with us there. So for today, I would like to thank you everybody once again. See you in the next event. Thank you.